An unforgettable man is not measured by what he gives, but by what he ceases to need. What makes a mark in a woman's mind is not the insistence or the promises, it's the firm energy of someone who chooses himself before anyone else. Because what's truly magnetic is not begging, nor chasing, nor pretending. It's maintaining a presence so solid that even silence weighs more than 1,000 words. The truth is harsh. A man fades when he depends, wears out when he insists, and becomes invisible when he seeks approval. On the other hand, he becomes a symbol when he learns to walk without needing to be chosen, when he inhabits his center and projects an internal power that can't be bought or faked. That is the difference between being just another option or transforming into a memory impossible to erase. Here, we will not talk about games or masks. We will talk about psychology, emotion, and energy, about how a man who masters himself impacts the deepest part of the female unconscious, leaving a mark that transcends the physical. Because a woman doesn't remember the one who begs, she remembers the one who commands respect without saying it, the one who doesn't ask but never goes unnoticed. Stay until the end, because you will learn 9 lessons that any man can practice in daily life to become that unforgettable presence that does not fade, even in silence and in distance. 1. Choose yourself before seeking to be chosen. A tree that has not taken firm roots cannot support the weight of its branches, no matter how much it tries to grow towards the sky. Such is a man who does not choose himself and pretends to be chosen by a woman. When there is no internal solidity, any external gaze becomes the only nourishment, and in that state, far from attracting, it conveys lack. The mistake is in believing that personal value depends on the acceptance of others, as if one's own shine needed the reflection of others to exist. The man who does not choose himself lives from anxiety, waiting to be approved, recognized or validated, and that emptiness is perceived. A woman can deeply feel when someone is offering himself as a desperate option, when his essence is conditioned to be accepted. This does not generate magnetism, it generates silent rejection. Therefore, the first step to becoming unforgettable is to cut that rotten root of dependence and start building from within, from the firmness of choosing oneself before any external gaze. Choosing oneself means recognizing that your life is not on hold, waiting for someone to activate it. It means that your projects, your passions, and your discipline have such great value that they are not negotiated for simple approval. When you choose yourself, your time stops being at the service of waiting and starts being at the service of your growth. This strength is projected unconsciously and is what awakens respect and admiration. A woman cannot forget a man who chooses himself, because that man becomes a reference, a symbol of self-sufficiency. How to avoid falling into the trap of waiting to be chosen? First, stop molding your identity to please. If you repress what you think or do things you don't want just to win approval, you are betraying your center. A woman does not remember an imitator, she remembers the one who remains true to himself even when he knows that not everyone will accept him. Second, invest your energy in what strengthens your character. I'm not talking about seeking perfection, but about working on your body, your mind, and your emotions constantly. When a man disciplines himself, he does not need to talk about his value. His mere presence conveys it. It is also vital to stop competing for attention. Every time you compare yourself to others to see who shines more, you are giving your power to an empty battle. An unforgettable man does not compete because his value does not depend on the external scenario. He is so rooted in himself that comparison lacks meaning, and that state is the one that leaves the most impact because it projects an unconscious message. I don't need you to choose me because I have already chosen myself. That silent declaration is what is engraved in a woman's mind. If you want your presence to weigh more than your absence, Start with this habit. Every morning, ask yourself if what you are going to do that day brings you closer to the life you want to build for yourself, not to please someone else. This simple practice trains you to make decisions from self-sufficiency and not from dependence. In the long run, that consistency transforms your energy into pure magnetism, because in the end, the female memory does not tie itself to the man who asks to be seen, but to the one who shines without asking for it. And that is the real choice, choosing yourself first so that no one can erase you later. 2. Master your silence as a powerful weapon. The sea does not need to roar to command respect. Its deep calm is enough to remind everyone that beneath it lies a force capable of moving continents. This is how silence works in a man, not as an empty absence, but as an invisible language that communicates power, security, and control. The mistake is to think that only those who talk or explain the most get noticed, when in reality the unforgettable is built in the spaces where words do not reach. A woman does not remember the one who filled every second with noise. She remembers the one who knew when to be silent at the exact moment and let the weight of his presence speak for him. Well-used silence is never weakness, it is mastery. A man who feels uncomfortable being silent reveals anxiety, shows that he needs to fill the voids so as not to be forgotten. On the other hand, the one who handles silence shows that he is not afraid of his own company, that he does not need to justify himself or embellish every gesture. This directly impacts the female subconscious because it conveys firmness and security, two qualities that resonate much stronger than any repeated word. Mastering silence means learning not to react to every provocation, not to respond immediately just for the need to have the last word. Many times, the hasty reaction becomes a weapon against yourself. When someone expects you to explode, to defend yourself or to beg, and instead finds calm and control, the message is clear. Nothing external governs your center. That contrast is unforgettable. How to turn silence into your ally. First, train your listening skills. Don't listen to respond, listen to understand. The man who really pays attention makes more impact than the one who interrupts seeking protagonism. A woman feels seen when someone captures her words without the need to fill the air with automatic responses. Second, accept uncomfortable moments without despair. Silence in a conversation may seem like a void, but in reality it is a mirror. Those who cannot tolerate it run away from themselves. Those who master it reflect security. Another practical tip is to control your emotions through silence. You don't always need to justify yourself, explain your decisions, or react instantly. The pause before speaking can avoid mistakes that make you appear weak or needy. This control not only improves your relationships, but also strengthens your personal discipline, because you learn to govern yourself instead of being dragged by impulses. Silence can also become a form of presence. When you withdraw without dramas, without endless speeches, your absence weighs more than any attempt to explain what you no longer need to say. A woman does not forget the man who knew how to withdraw calmly because his energy continues to resonate without the need for noise. There lies the real power, in marking with what you silence, not with what you repeat. Practice this in your daily life. When someone seeks to provoke a reaction in you, breathe and remain silent before responding. When you feel the urge to justify your decisions, remember that those who know their worth do not need to convince anyone. Make silence a shield that protects you and a sword that cuts any attempt at manipulation. Thus, little by little, your presence becomes more intense, harder to ignore. 3. Become a symbol, not an option. The mountain does not move to impress those who gaze upon it. It stands firm, imposing and silent, and yet it leaves those who behold it breathless. This is how an unforgettable man should project himself, not as someone who competes to be chosen, but as a presence that inspires and transcends. The one who seeks to be an option lives in the insecurity of comparison, while the one who embodies a symbol becomes irreplaceable because he represents something that goes beyond the ordinary. Being an option means adjusting your identity to fit in, modifying attitudes to please, and accepting conditions in order to be taken into account. This stance conveys need, weakness, and lack of direction. No one remembers what is easily replaceable. Being a symbol, on the other hand, is occupying a place in memory due to the strength of what is represented. It's not about competing or standing out among many, it's about becoming an unignorable reference. The path to becoming a symbol begins with radical authenticity. When life aligns with clear principles, lengthy speeches are not needed to demonstrate who you are. Actions speak, discipline reflects character, and consistency projects respect. This combination deeply marks the female subconscious because it conveys stability and conviction. The unforgettable does not come from promises. It comes from what is embodied day after day. To avoid being trapped in the role of a mere option, it is necessary to stop competing for attention. The one who competes has already lost, because he acknowledges that he exists on the same scale as others. Instead of wearing oneself out trying to surpass others, the real focus should be on building one's own solid and clear path. Whoever moves forward with direction becomes a symbol of purpose, while others get lost in immediacy. Consistency is another pillar. It's not enough to show firmness one day and falter the next. Memory is engraved with constancy. Whoever maintains his habits, keeps his word, and stands firm even in adversity conveys an unerasable message. I am reliable, even when everything falls apart. This firmness becomes the mark that distinguishes someone memorable from someone ordinary. It is also vital to invest in one's own identity. This is not about external adornments or appearances, but about essence. Asking oneself what life represents, what values are non-negotiable, and what purpose guides each step is what transforms a person into a symbol. When there is clarity in identity, there is no need to shout for recognition because the mere presence imposes it. The symbol does not seek, does not beg, does not offer itself as an alternative. It stands at its center and becomes an inevitable memory. While options are easily forgotten, the symbol remains. And that is the real secret. Stop waiting for a place on the choice list and build a presence that no one can erase, because it represents something that transcends the momentary and leaves an eternal mark. 4. Reflects their truth without manipulating it. A mirror never invents a face, it only returns what it has in front of it with clarity, even what many would prefer to hide. That is the true strength of someone who becomes unforgettable. They do not manipulate, they do not distort, they simply reflect. A man who reflects a woman's truth without the need for duplicity manages to touch deep layers of her mind and emotion, because he does not become an actor in a theater, but a catalyst for authenticity. The most common mistake is wanting to convince, embellish, exaggerate, or even invent to arouse interest. This strategy may generate momentary attention, but it never leaves a mark. Manipulating shows that there is no internal security, that it is necessary to alter reality to be accepted. This lack is perceived, and although it can deceive at first, in the long term, it becomes evident. What is recorded is not the lie, but the strength of the one who dared to show without fear what the other carries inside. Reflecting truth means being consciously present, without the need to judge or disguise. Many women drag shadows, insecurities, or wounds that rarely someone dares to point out firmly and without cruelty. The man who manages to reflect these truths without seeking control becomes a figure difficult to erase, because he did not limit himself to entertain, but became a trigger for self-awareness. How to apply this in everyday life? First, avoid falling into constant complacency. Do not accept everything nor always say what you want the other to hear. Express calmly but firmly what you think, even if you know it may be uncomfortable. This friction, far from creating rejection, awakens respect because it shows that you do not live to please. Second, develop the ability to observe. It's not just about listening to words, but noticing gestures, silences, and contradictions. When you reflect what the other shows unconsciously, you leave an impression impossible to ignore. It is also essential to learn to hold the truth without using it as a weapon. Reflecting is not attacking, it is showing clearly. If you use the truth to humiliate or manipulate, you lose respect. But if you use it to build, to give perspective, you create a solid bond based on authenticity. The female mind stores this experience because it is not common to find someone who shows firmly without the need to dominate. Another practical way to cultivate this habit is to work on your own internal mirror. Whoever dares not confront their own shadows can hardly reflect clearly those of another. Authenticity begins with you. When you have accepted your flaws, your fears, and your contradictions, you project a different energy. You do not speak from superiority, you speak from experience. This generates a more powerful reflection because it is perceived as real. The authentic reflection is not forgotten because it activates internal processes. A woman may forget flattering words or superficial gestures, but she never forgets the one who made her see herself truly, the one who confronted her with her lights and shadows without disguise or manipulation. Therein lies the secret of the unforgettable. To be like that mirror that does not need adornments, because all it returns is pure reality. 5. Inhabit your center and do not depend on the bond. The tornado devastates because it spins out of control, but the eye of the storm remains serene amidst the chaos. This center is the real power, the place from where everything holds up without collapsing. This is how a man should live if he wants to become unforgettable, not spinning around the bond, nor getting lost in the need to be approved, but inhabiting his own center, stable and firm, with the clarity that nothing external defines his worth. When someone completely surrenders to depend on the bond, they lose balance. Every gesture of approval or rejection becomes a storm, every absence a devastating blow. This dependence does not inspire respect or admiration. It conveys emptiness and weakness. A woman does not intensely remember the one who dissolved in her. She remembers the one who knew how to stand firm, even within the relationship, the one who did not lose his essence to please. Inhabiting one's own center means having a life that does not paralyze or collapse if the bond changes. It means that your purpose, your goals, and your energy remain intact, regardless of whether someone stays or leaves. This emotional independence is not coldness. It is maturity. And the curious thing is that the firmer you stand in your center, the more impact you make on the female unconscious, because you project strength and security in a world where many give in to dependence. How to avoid falling into this trap? First, set your priorities before entering any relationship. If your identity is built only around another person, you are giving away your center. Always ask yourself what things are untouchable in your life, your projects, your discipline, your physical and mental well-being. When these pillars are clear, no bond manages to drag you out of your axis. Second, learn to recognize the signs of dependence. If you notice that your emotions depend solely on the gestures of the other person, you are losing your balance. Instead of constantly seeking confirmation, practice emotional self-sufficiency. This is achieved by dedicating time to strengthen your routines, taking care of your body, training your mind, and feeding passions that do not revolve around the bond. Third, do not forget that loving does not mean nullifying oneself. Authentic love does not come from need, it comes from choice. When you decide to be with someone from freedom and not from dependence, the energy you project completely changes. The female mind remembers more intensely the one who chooses from abundance and not from the fear of being alone. Inhabiting the center also involves learning to hold silence when necessary, not to react desperately if attention does not come as expected. This calm is perceived and deeply marks. A woman does not forget the one who knew how to maintain his axis, even when he could have fallen into the whirlwind of insecurity. The most powerful presence is not the one that gives itself up to disappear, but the one that stands firm and chooses to share from fullness. That is the man who leaves a mark, the one who inhabits his center, the one who does not depend on the bond to exist, the one who becomes a stable force in the midst of chaos. 6. Make your energy your greatest language. A fire does not need to announce itself for everyone to feel it. Simple proximity is enough for the heat to impose itself without words or explanations. This is how the energy of an unforgettable man works. It does not require endless speeches or exaggerated demonstrations because his mere presence communicates the essentials. The energy projected is the true language that is engraved in a woman's mind and emotion. Many believe that conquering depends on what is said, what is given, or what is promised. However, what really marks is what is transmitted without speaking. A confident look, a firm posture, a calm that does not break under pressure, a silence charged with intensity, all this leaves invisible traces in the female subconscious. The unforgettable is born from what vibrates in the energy, not from what is repeated in words. Energy reflects what is inside. If you live in anxiety, insecurity, or fear, your presence will reveal it even if you try to hide it with superficial gestures. If you inhabit calm, confidence, and purpose, that will be projected effortlessly. The female mind captures these signals even if it is not aware of them. It's instinctive, almost biological. Therefore, whoever wants to become unforgettable must first work on their interior, because what is carried inside always ends up being expressed outside. How to cultivate an energy that speaks louder than any phrase. Start by taking care of your body, not from vanity, but from discipline. Vital energy is built with adequate rest, constant exercise, and food that strengthens rather than weakens. An exhausted and neglected man does not transmit power, he transmits wear and tear. On the other hand, whoever takes care of himself projects strength and vitality that are perceived instantly. Then, work your mind. Repeated thoughts generate the vibration that is emitted. If your mind is loaded with negativity, insecurity, and complaints, that will be the energy you spread. If you train your mind in focus, clarity, and gratitude, you will project stability. A woman does not forget who makes her feel peace and firmness without needing to talk too much. Another essential aspect is learning to manage emotions. Energy is distorted when you let yourself be carried away by impulses, when you react with anger, desperation, or excess. On the other hand, it strengthens when you hold calm even under pressure. This ability to maintain emotional control not only speaks of maturity, it also arouses respect and admiration. Practice this habit daily. Enter any place with full awareness of what you transmit. It's not about pretending security, but about remembering who you are and what you represent. Walk upright, keep your gaze firm, speak only what is necessary, and let your energy complete what words do not say. Make your presence an experience, not a simple encounter. In the end, beautiful phrases are forgotten, gifts lose their shine, and promises can be broken. What remains is the energy that was felt when near you. That vibration is what marks the memory, because it cannot be manufactured or imitated. When you make your energy your greatest language, you become impossible to erase. 7. Transform your absence into an unforgettable presence. The shadow does not scream, it does not impose itself, but when the light disappears, its absence is felt with a force that weighs more than any word. This is how the footprint of an unforgettable man should be. Someone whose lack is not perceived as indifferent emptiness, but as a constant reminder of what his presence represented. It is not about disappearing whimsically or manipulating with distance. but about understanding that a well-constructed absence has more impact than an exaggerated presence. The most common mistake is to believe that to stay in someone's memory, you need to insist, send constant messages, be available at all times. This overexposure kills the mystery and turns the valuable into the everyday. What is easy to obtain is rarely appreciated. Instead, when a man learns to use his absence intelligently, he awakens in the female mind a psychological tension that is hard to ignore. Absence speaks louder because it activates the imagination, and the imagination always magnifies what it cannot have. Transforming absence into presence does not mean disappearing without reason or playing at indifference. It means leaving such deep footprints that even in silence, your energy continues to accompany. This happens when interaction is not limited to the superficial, when every word, every look, and every action have weight and coherence. Thus, when you are not there, the memory is automatically activated because what you offered was authentic and solid. How to achieve this in practice? First, take care of the quality of your present moments. It's not about how much time you share, but the intensity with which you do it. A deep conversation, a look that conveys confidence, an authentic gesture mark much more than hours of superficial coexistence. Quality builds memories, quantity dilutes them. Second, avoid the need to always be available. Being overly accessible conveys anxiety and dependence. Set your own times, respect your projects, and keep your life as a priority. When your world does not revolve solely around the bond, your absence takes on a different weight. It is not perceived as indifference, but as independence, and that awakens respect. Third, use silence intelligently. Not responding immediately is not a lack of interest, it is control. Silence creates space for the other person's mind to seek you, to imagine, to feel the lack. This calculated distance strengthens the memory because what is not had all the time is valued more. It is also key to cultivate an energetic legacy. When your way of speaking, your confidence and your authenticity leave a mark, you do not need to be physically present to remain. Your absence becomes an automatic reminder of what you represent. That is the point at which memory cannot let you go, because every detail revives your image. The unforgettable is not built in saturation, but in the space that is left. A woman can easily forget the man who was always behind her, but she hardly forgets the one who knew how to withdraw calmly and whose absence became a constant presence in her mind. That is the real power, to be there even when you are not. 8. Be a mystery in a world of obviousness. The most valuable book is not the one that is read in an afternoon, but the one that forces you to stop on each page, the one that does not reveal everything at once and always leaves a space for interpretation. This is how an unforgettable man should be, not a predictable story that is known from the first chapter, but an enigma that arouses curiosity and keeps attention alive. In a world where everyone immediately shows what they are, whoever keeps a mystery becomes an exception, and that rarity is impossible to ignore. The common thing is to expose every detail of life as if it were an obligation, to tell everything that is thought, to share every movement and every emotion without filters. This excessive transparency is not a virtue, it is overexposure, and what is shown too quickly loses value. The predictable is boring, the obvious ceases to arouse interest. On the other hand, what is not fully understood generates magnetism because the human mind cannot stand gaps and seeks to fill them with imagination. A woman does not remember the one who was obvious from the start. She remembers the one who never let himself be fully deciphered. Being a mystery does not mean being false or inventing a mask. It means to dose, to keep, to choose intelligently what is revealed and what is reserved. It implies maintaining an inaccessible inner space, a place that not just anyone enters, and that reserve projects a powerful aura. Mystery is not cold distance, it is inner wealth that does not need to be shown at every moment to exist. How to apply it in everyday life? First, control what you share. It's not about being hermetic, but about avoiding giving your whole life away immediately. If someone already knows everything about you from the start, they have nothing more to discover. Learn to leave space for them to ask, to inquire, to search. That search is what keeps attraction alive. Second, avoid being predictable in your reactions. The man who always responds in the same way becomes easy to read, and what is easy to read ceases to generate interest. Keep calm when they expect you to explode. Smile when they expect silence. Keep silent when they expect an explanation. This ability to break patterns arouses admiration because it reveals mastery and control over yourself. Third, cultivate your own world. Mystery is not sustained by simple reservation, but by the richness of an interesting life. Invest in projects, in passions, in learnings that make you more complex and deeper. The broader your inner world, the more impossible it will be to exhaust it in a single conversation. A woman does not forget the one who inspires her to discover more, because each encounter leaves the feeling that there is still much to know. Authentic mystery is not a strategy. It is the result of a solid life. The obvious is forgotten, the enigmatic is engraved. Being a mystery in a world of obviousness is not a game, it is a statement. Not everyone has access to everything you are, and whoever manages to get close will know that they are facing someone different. That rarity is what transforms memory and turns your figure into an unforgettable memory. 9. Free yourself from the need to be indispensable. The water that flows between the hands never clings, it simply passes, and yet it leaves its mark on the skin. That is the paradox of the unforgettable. The less you try to be indispensable, the more space you leave for your presence to weigh in memory. The need to be essential in someone's life comes from fear, and fear always destroys attraction. When you seek to be everything for a woman, you become nothing, because that obsession nullifies magnetism and transforms your energy into dependence. Whoever strives to be indispensable conveys lack. He is saying, without words, that he does not trust his own value, that he fears being replaced, and that his existence depends on the recognition of others. This attitude does not generate respect or admiration, it generates fatigue and suffocation. The female mind does not intensely remember who clings desperately, it remembers who knew how to be without needing to claim a place. Freeing oneself from this need means understanding that true strength is not in occupying all spaces, but in preserving one's own. The unforgettable man does not seek to become a savior or an emotional crutch, because he knows that love is not measured by dependence, but by choice. Whoever shares from freedom projects a different energy, lighter, more solid, harder to erase. How to apply this in everyday life? First, stop trying to solve every detail of the other person's life. You are not their permanent solution or their absolute pillar. When you assume that role, you wear out and lose respect. Learn to be present without needing to absorb everything. Show support without becoming a necessity. Second, preserve your individuality. Maintain projects, passions, and friendships that do not depend on the bond. This independence is what keeps your energy attractive, because it shows that your world does not collapse if you are not at the center of everything. It is also key not to beg for recognition. Do not constantly look for proof that you are indispensable, because that insistence reveals insecurity. Trust in your value. When someone chooses to have you close, knowing that you do not cling, the connection becomes much more intense and real. A woman does not forget the man who was there by his own choice and not out of fear of disappearing. In the end, the unforgettable is not who tries to be necessary, but who manages to be valuable without depending on that need. The real mark is left when your life has so much weight in itself that it does not need to be confirmed by another. That freedom is what transforms your presence into an indelible memory, because no one forgets who did not cling and, even so, became a symbol of strength and authenticity. Thank you for staying until the end of the video. If you watched the whole thing, comment "I am Stoic" as our secret signal to know that you're a true student of Stoicism. Don't forget to subscribe and give the video a like if you enjoyed it. See you in the next video, and remember, keep cultivating your Stoic mind.